I recently finished an interesting little fantasy tale by Albert T. Franklin. My feel on the book shifted quite a bit as I continued through it from start to finish. Here are my thoughts. Welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where a father and son talk about fantasy, science fiction, and other nerdy things we enjoy. Today, just Jim here, the father of this show, bringing to you a book blast episode. So, my spoiler light review of a book I've recently read. If you enjoy this, be sure to hit the like button, and we'll hope you subscribe to our channel. Searching for Zen, a tale of divine destiny. It's an odd little book. That's my initial response. Now, please understand, odd is not necessarily a bad thing. The feel, the vibe of this book, it was distinctly different from other fantasy fiction with which I am familiar in multiple ways. And for the most part, I found that enjoyable. I'm going to discuss these elements here with you and give you a brief overview of the book, but I will not ruin the entire plot. So if you are here with me to see, should I read this book? You're in a safe space. And if you have read it, I'd love to hear your thoughts on my thoughts. First off, the story is not long, just 218 pages in the paperback, and it reads quickly. The density on the text is actually unusually light. These lines are spaced out more than common. So you're flying through this content, and that's actually rather satisfying as you can just keep turning page after page after page. I found that kind of fun because physical books are my least favorite mode to read things in these days. So I'm achieving as I can keep moving through this book. I think I'm kind of weird in that regard, but I own it. Second, I found the tone of this book to be both innocent and whimsical. There are some intriguing and interesting events occurring in the book that are easy to portray with such a tone. But even the darker and more dangerous aspects of this story have a lightness to them. It's a unique way that Franklin has written this book, the style of writing that he chooses to incorporate. The stakes never feel as heavy or as tense as maybe they should. It's a light, gentle read. Does that make sense? Again, this is part of what's odd about the book, and it's sort of hard to explain. Thirdly, this fantasy tale is set in our world. Sort of. I mean, it's not necessarily our world, but it has many recognizable elements, including past historical references. Honestly, I felt like it was supposed to be our world, either in a past time that I'm not quite familiar with, or a future time where technology has regressed to a previous state, but I'm not quite sure. It's not exactly important whether it truly is our world or not, but the fact that I couldn't be sure is again part of what's odd about the book. It's also odd that it really didn't trouble me. It's just something to comment on. At the core of the story, this is a quest fantasy. A chosen one is selected by the god's herald to seek out his destiny, which may be to deliver the world to the next level of growth and peace, or perhaps to save the world from the next great catastrophe that's on its way, or just to become an incredible source of knowledge and wisdom sitting atop some mountain for people to come to and ask their questions. The actual endgame is never quite set. What is set is that this person who was chosen as an infant, when he reaches an appropriate age, he will know it is time to set out on his quest. Informed of his targets, his objectives by this herald, he will journey to acquire both special objects that he needs and specific companions that he is destined to come upon. And all of these add to his preparation for a final test that has been predetermined for him. It awaits. Pass the test, and what he will accomplish will be world changing. Fail the test. Bad things. Very bad things. What the author then adds into the story that I found most intriguing is Zen's primary special ability. This is the foundation of this character, Zen. From infancy, he has the ability to absorb the entire life knowledge of any person he touches. Now, this doesn't hurt the person he touches in any way. They are unchanged, but everything that is about them, all knowledge, skills, experience, gets sucked into Zen. Think about that. Think about what such knowledge could do to a person. Every bit of knowledge and skill, all your dirty, dark secrets, all your wonderful aspirations, all your grand achievements, all your hard earned knowledge. It's all his. Everything that makes you, you, goes into him. Not surprisingly, Zen becomes a quite unusual individual at a very early age. He's also mature beyond his years, as he's absorbed so many lifespans of experience when he's still just a young boy. But wait, there's more. Because Zen is short for Zendarian, and he is not the first Zendarian selected. There have been a series of these individuals throughout history that, in this story, this world, God has chosen for a special quest. In fact, this special quest, very similar journey that this Zen has been sent upon. So, will this Zen be the one to overcome and conquer? Because not all have. On his side is not only his special knowledge absorption ability, he also appears to be innately magical. The magic system in this story is a little soft, but in essence, we learn that some people simply have a magical element about them, part of their makeup, and they can use this magical ability, spells, curses, whatever it allows them to do. It manifests in different ways in different magical people. Zen has this magical essence, and he has it in spades. I mean, it's grandiose for him, much more than most other people who have magic. But he doesn't necessarily need to learn to use it. That's an interesting thing about the magic in this story. Things just become possible for him simply by thinking of it. One of the last things he thinks of how to do, is actually rather explosive and impressive. But things are not totally explained. Like I said, it's a soft magic system. Following Zen along his quest is interesting and entertaining, mostly made this way because of the various characters that he comes into encounters with, many of whom join him then upon his quest. I appreciated most of these characters and what they brought to the narrative. I particularly enjoyed Cat. If you read it, you'll understand. There are two elements of the story that I found not quite to my liking. And maybe it's just me, but I don't entirely think so. The first and the biggest of these was the author's handling of intimate, romantic scenes. They felt awkward. The level of detail and the approach to how the characters engage physically just feels off. Just the way the scenes were written took me out of the story, as I was focused more on how he was writing the scene than in what was actually going on. I like to say in most of these sorts of scenes, for me, less is more, and I was getting too much more. Go back to less. Fade to black, okay? It's not that these were offensive. They're not written gratuitously. They are not horrible. But they just didn't feel real. They weren't authentic. So again, we get the idea of what's about to happen. Now let's let it happen off screen. Come back in after the event. And I think you'd get far more what the author was going for. The other issue with the book for me is the way it ends. It seems right while not seeming right at the same time. The book's ending felt a little forced, a bit unclear, and just sort of, what? This is particularly elevated for me by the ways a late character addition interacts with the plot and the primary character in the final scenes. it just doesn't entirely work. Again, this does not ruin the book, but it means the ending falls a little short of its potential, and that's always a bummer. Overall, I gave this novel a 3 out of 5 star rating. That's average. People need to get over anything below 4 being bad. No, 1 is a bad score on a 1 to 5, and 2 is not particularly great, but 3 is fine. 4 and 5, I reserve that for stories that are like impressive, really took me somewhere, really rocked my world as I read it. I mean, that's a 5. A 3 is fine. And a 3 is one I would not hesitate to encourage you to check out. So, if you want to take a look at a story that takes little commitment, like I said, it's a quick read, and not just that it's a quick read, but it does introduce some elements in unique ways with an unusual vibe, odd, you likely would enjoy Searching for Zen, A Tale of Divine Destiny. So check it out, and let me know if you do and what you thought of it. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.